Hello, coffee lovers. JR with Third Day Coffee Seguin, and it's Friday. It's 1900, so that means you're about to get the next installation or installment or whatever they call it of the God Country Coffee video podcast. Today, my guest is a United States Army um, Cobra pilot, and he couldn't be here right now, so he came earlier today. We recorded it, and what I'm going to do is, while I'm here, I'm going to play the recording for you. A couple of things: the Pray Hat, JD Tierney with Get Southpaw Laser Concepts. Thank you for the awesome hat. And I'm not wearing my polo today, but that's all right. I hope you guys can, if you have any problems hearing or if the volume doesn't sound right, please write something in the comments. Chris, how you doing, brother? So we've had a busy week. We went up to Dallas yesterday and picked up another grinder because one grinder wasn't enough. And that's a great problem to have. And so we're growing, and I've got 4 people here tonight that are helping with bagging and grinding while I'm goofing off in here. But this is definitely part of our game plan. You know, we're going to do all aspects of the coffee. So thank you for letting us know that the sound is good, and welcome. And again, my guest tonight, his name is Don Phillips. He's a gentleman that I've known from church for many years. I didn't know for the whole time we've lived out here that he lived just literally right down the street. He's less than 2 miles. He's right where our street turns off onto the main, and he lives right there on his little farm. And so, without further ado, I'm gonna load the program here so you guys can watch me and Don interact. And again, thank you for watching. Please do watch parties, share it, let everybody. We're doing this on YouTube also, so please go to our YouTube, and like they say, like, share, and subscribe. And so I'm going to go ahead and share this now, and we'll get started there. Let's see, how do I do this? Because I'm learning. Okay, there's that. Oh, where did it go? Okay, there we go. Hello, coffee lovers. JR with Third Day Coffee Seguin, and my guest, the infamous Don Phillips. He's probably famous in some places, but we're not sure. And so before we get started with our interview, one of the things that we're going to do is we want you to keep our friend Will and Barbara Davis and their children in your prayers. We just ask that God just wrap them up in love right now. Their house burned down this last week, and Don knows Will very well, and so do I. And so we just ask that you keep that Davis family in your prayers, as we will. Before we get started with the interview, I'm going to play a short video that features Don.
My name is Don Phillips. I was a captain at the time in Vietnam, flying Cobra, We were at first at Camp Frenzel Jones as Delta Troop, and then we moved out to Lai K, and they changed their designation to F Troop. I became the platoon commander out there with the Cobras, and flew, I don't know how many hours, lots and lots of hours, and I really enjoyed it. And we really, as best you can, Lai K was a good place to be. We enjoyed that. My tail number was, my aircraft was the Warlord, 825. My crew chief was a young black boy by the name of Carolina, and I just loved to get a hold of him. What a fine young man. No, we flew, at first we were floating and doing the Rangers. We supported the Rangers when we were at Camp Fenton Jones, and a little bit after we moved to Lyke, and we had LERPs as well. And then we did support the Arvins, but a lot of our mission was with our LERPs, our blues. We weren't particularly happy that they had taken us away from the 25th Infantry Division. They moved us when they changed us to the F Troop. We were part of the 1st Brigade, 1st Aviation Brigade. But I still consider myself a 25th Infantry guy. Yeah. No matter.
Did they ask you about changing the Centaur call sign or anything?
They mentioned that, I think, and when it was a complete nix, we weren't going to get rid of our Centaur designation.
Okay, hang on a second, folks. I totally botched that up. Give me just 1 second here. Let me reload. Hello, coffee lovers. JR with Third Day Coffee. Thank you for coming today.
It was a complete nix. We weren't going to get rid of our Centaur designation.
Okay, so that was just a short. I'm going to let Don introduce himself because I'll probably mess it up if I try to pull anything out of my memory. But first, Don, I want to thank you for coming today and sitting down and talking with us. Again, this podcast is God Country Coffee. It's for the purpose of promoting the Third Day Coffee Seguin mission. And our mission truly is to serve the community in a Christ-like fashion. And so we're patriots, and a lot of us are veterans, including myself. My wife actually served in the Texas State Guard, and obviously Don flew one of the fine aircraft that's in our background here. And so, Don, would you give us a full introduction?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. And by the way, this coffee I've been drinking is very good. And I want to put my 2 cents on Will and Barbara with the kids. And I'm sick about their loss and of their home and all their belongings. So we're going to ask everyone to keep them in their prayers. I was born in West Texas, out on a ranch in West Texas in 1941. I lived on a ranch. It's 14 sections. We raised cattle and sheep, and I knew the Lord and became a Christian at an early age. My mother and father both passed away. My mother was killed in an accident when I was 6. My dad died of brain tumor when I was 8, and an uncle who was a brother of my father's and his wife took us and raised us, and they were Christians too, so we were very happy with that. I got in the Army. Well, we had a bad drought in West Texas for a number of years in the 50s, and my brother and I bought a place in Arkansas, and I wasn't particularly happy there, but we spent the 6 years in Arkansas, and I got out as soon as I could. But don't get me wrong, there's some really fine people in Arkansas. We did well in Arkansas. It just wasn't West Texas. So when I finished high school, I first got in the Guard. I spent 6 years as an enlisted man and on active duty too, and then went to OCS and became an officer. And I think it's important. To me, it's very important for an officer to have the experience as an enlisted person to know what it's all about. And I do. And I, as a commander, I got in trouble so many times for trying to take care of my people. I was called in on the carpet, and I would always stand up for my people, and I believe in that, and I think it's a God thing, and I wouldn't take for my experiences, really.
Let me ask you a question. We'll back up just a little bit. You said you grew up on a ranch with 14 sections?
Yes, sir.
That's 600 and some odd acres a section, right?
640 acres per section.
Wow.
Yes, sir.
And so what happened to that ranch after your parents passed away?
Well, we owned part of that, and my grandfather owned part of it. And when he passed away, there were 9 of those kids, and it was all split up with all the children of that family, my uncles and aunts. So that, and plus the drought, made it necessary for us to do something different.
Right.
And that's when we bought a place. We bought a place that I can't remember, 400 and some acres in Arkansas, and you'd have thought we had the King Ranch over there. I mean, it was big. They have 40-acre plots, so many of them, and it was really difficult to get used to that country because it was all piney woods, and we ran cattle, and it was tough taking care of them in that fine country. But it was experiences. It was good, and I learned a lot, but I don't want to go back to Arkansas.
So back to the Army. You what was your first duty station?
When I first went in, I was at Fort Knox, and then I was also at what is it? Columbus, Georgia. I can't remember now. But I was at Columbus, Georgia, and was there many times. Now I can't remember it. My mind's gone blank. And then when I was commissioned, I went to Fort Gordon in northern and Augusta, Georgia, and had my first command up there. And pardon me, I've got an eye I just had operated on that's getting drive me crazy. So anyway, I applied for a flight school as soon as I got up there, and it took a while, and I had a command and a basic training unit for a couple of years up there. It was an experience for sure doing that. And then I went to flight school. And
what year did you graduate flight school?
69, I guess, 69.
And did you get deployed to Vietnam immediately, or?
I had to get a Cobra transition. When we started flying at that time, we did our primary helicopter training at Fort Walters in Texas. And then when you finished your got into your final phase, you went to Fort Rucker, Alabama, and you finished that you were commissioned, got your wings and were as a pilot. And then I got a transition to the Cobra, and I had to go down to southeast Georgia and do the transition to the Cobra, and then I was straight to Vietnam.
Now, what did you train in? Did you train in the UH-1 Bell?
I've trained in the Bell. At that time, they had 2 different aircraft there. They had another little one there, but the Bell's what I trained in. And then we got to Fort Rucker. We did instrument training in the Bell, and then got into the Hueys.
Nice.
And that was quite a deal to get into the Hueys, some of the turbine engine that you don't have to. If people don't know about flying a reciprocating engine helicopter, the throttle control is all over here on that collective, which is the up and down thing. And when you get in a turbine aircraft, it controls the RPMs for you. So that's a good thing. So,
Nice.
but that was quite a different thing, you know. And then the Cobra transition was just, I'd been wanting to fly a Cobra forever. And so that was a good thing for me.
I remember seeing them at one of the air shows when I was little. And I'm not trying to age you or anything, but our dad used to take us all the time to the air shows. And Dad was about 5 years older than you. He was born in '36.
Okay.
And so he in some hangar somewhere. He was a CI counterintelligence guy, and he saw a UH-1 Bell long before the public ever saw him.
Mm-hmm.
And anyway, he used to take us to the air shows all the time. Oh yeah, I saw this in Germany, and I saw that somewhere. And I remember seeing those Cobras, and they just looked like, I mean, they were so lean, but they were so maneuverable. You know, just an amazing aircraft.
Yeah, they really were. Of course, they're gone now, but when they bought the Apache on, I was hoping I'd still be around, but I didn't get to fly it. That's the new one. But the Cobra was the Cadillac of the bunch at the time. It's interesting that it had an air conditioning in it. It had an air conditioner because it had this closed cockpit.
Okay.
And the military couldn't call it an air conditioner, so they called it an ACU. And his ECU, environmental control unit, you know. So you could not call it an air conditioner. But if that thing wasn't working in Southeast Asia, you got in that Cobra with that glass cockpit, it was plenty hot, and you couldn't open the windows at all.
Wow.
So it was pretty neat.
Had no vents or anything?
It had vents, but you blowing in the hot air off that humidity in Vietnam was tough. So.
And how long were you in country?
I was over there for a year.
All right. So after the tour in Vietnam, you stayed in the military, right?
Yes.
What was your career like after Vietnam?
Well, I still flew for a good while. I went to Fort Sill, Oklahoma, and they were gearing up a unit to do shooting demonstrations for the artillery. That's where the artillery branch is located, in Fort Sill, Oklahoma. And so we did those demonstrations for those people, and it wasn't nearly as exciting as Vietnam, but it was a job. So I was an XO there. I wasn't a commander, but I was the executive officer. So it was different, for sure.
And then was that your last?
No,
tour?
then unfortunately, when you get promoted, they want to take your wings away, and you can still do some flying for a while. But I ended up in a division headquarters, and it just wasn't the same. Not, when they take your wings away and you're flying paper and pushing paper instead of an aircraft, it's quite different.
I bet.
But it's a necessary evil, I guess.
Right. What year did you finally retire from the Army?
In '93.
Wow. Okay.
Long time.
So you had a long career in the Army. And then after that, did you enter the civilian sector?
Yes, I did. Mm-hmm. I did do that, and I flew aircraft for a long. I got my fixed wing rating after I finished out of the Army, and flew aircraft and for different companies.
Okay.
Corporate pilot.
Awesome.
And it was fun stuff. It really was. We got to go to some neat places, and it's not like the stand in line and get into the airport deal. I mean, people don't understand that when you're flying your own aircraft, you pull up, you go out to the airplane in your car, unload your stuff out of the car, your clothes, etc. Park the vehicle, get in the airplane, and get your clearance, and you go. And when you get to where you're going, go get you a car and come out and pick it up. And, that's this commercial flying thing is it's just hard on me.
I bet after that, I mean, that's like what business, big businesses that have corporate jets and things like that.
Yeah,
that's awesome. And so, was that your final career before you finally just decided to be Don Phillips, retired?
Old and cranky. Yeah, that's kind of it.
So I met you through church. I met Don through church after Sutherland Springs we started. I don't know what the proper word is because I don't want to say it wrong, but let me back up a little bit. So Don was instrumental, and I want you to talk about this because I don't know. We've never really talked. I don't know how you had a hand in it, but Don. So churches cannot. You can't carry your weapon at a church. Most churches have the proper signage 0607 outside their church. You cannot conceal carry. You're not supposed to open carry, obviously, into a church. But Don had something to do with the legislation that allowed churches to organize a safety group, for lack of, I don't know what the proper term is, right? Where you can have a group that trains and that is for the purpose of, keeping the church safe. And so I'm gonna let Don talk about. I don't know how that happened or how you were involved, but that's very interesting.
In the state of Texas, the security people had their hand in the control of all security in churches and everything. And because that was necessary for them to control it, it made it where a church, especially a small church, could not afford to go and hire a security person in a security firm every time the doors were open. It just couldn't handle it. So I went to the legislator here. My Texas representative was in Seguin, and he got with another person, and I asked them to do something about making it legal for churches to, in fact, have their weapons and can have a security force. And they got that legislation passed in the state of Texas so that it was okay for churches to have a security force. We couldn't call ourselves security. We could call ourselves whatever, but they were picky about what you called yourself. And that got done. And so consequently, we were able to have a, whatever you want to call us, but we were security, but you can't say that. Yeah. And it was very good that we were able to do that. And we had some good people. I was really happy and proud with our people at the church. And we did some good training, JR. You remember that.
We did some really good.
And it's so necessary that, and so a lot of people don't understand, but when you go to get your concealed carry license, they want you to go out and shoot and prove you can shoot, but you don't really learn anything.
Right.
And I'm so happy that the state of Texas has the law that we can do that, but that doesn't teach you to be safe and secure with a weapon. So we did we're going to have range training and really learn some things, and it was really good, and I'm proud of that fact.
Yeah, we also did some training at church too.
Yes, we
in
did.
the building.
Yes, we did.
And I know that's really critical too, because in a situation where there's other people, lots of innocent people involved, even the security people or the safety people have to be aware of where their bullets are going.
That's correct.
And so we didn't just do training at the range. And we had qualified people that have certifications and all kinds of stuff that we trained with. Mm-hmm. And so it was a very organized. It's really hard though. It's really hard to ask. There's certain people like Don, like Will Davis. There was quite a few others that was fine. They were perfectly okay with that. But there's a lot of people like I spent my entire time in the Navy on a ship, and it was before 9/11. Mm-hmm. And, the biggest thing that we did was we would play cat and mouse with the Russian subs because our ship was a sub hunter, I guess you could call it, for lack of better words. But and so I don't, I don't know what would happen if bullets started flying. I mean, I've trained for it and I can handle my weapons and I'm safe with them. But, even some of my friends, one of my friends, Tony Calderoni, said, you don't know until that first shot's fired at you.
That's really true, JR. And I live that, and people don't know, and you don't know, even as an individual, you don't know what's going to happen to you when that first round comes. I was shot at hundreds and hundreds of times, but the first few times it's in combat. It's deafening. It's scary, and it's really frightening. So that was something that I had a lot of concern about with our security force at the church, because you can talk big and you can say this and say that, but when the first round flies and when the first noise of a round fires, you don't know what you're going to do. I can tell you that for sure, because it's
you might get hurt by me running you over, so I can go hide somewhere.
That thing, I'm telling you, it's people just don't know. You can try to get yourself ready for it, but God's in control. We know that, but still,
there's bad people in this world.
Yes, there are bad people in this world,
and so that's one of the reasons. But I think that's really interesting too. And Don, we didn't know. We've lived here for, I guess, 7 or 8 years now, and I've known Don most of that time.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know that he lived right at the end of the street.
He wouldn't talk to me, is what the truth is,
Well, one day I saw him come down the street in his Polaris with his dog in the back, and I was like, Don, what are you doing on the street? And so you grew up around here, though, right?
No, I spent 30 years here.
Yeah.
And this road, pardon me, I dropped my phone. This road used to be just out in the pasture, and I rode horses back here. I have horses, and I do a competition called cutting horse. But anyway, I'd ride for exercise for my horses. I'd ride all the way back here to the end of this road, right where he lives. There was nothing back here, and there were some unusual and strange things that happened back here on this road before you moved in, and I had to get the drug enforcement of these people out here one time at the end of this road. It was pretty interesting, but yeah. But I'm glad that JR is my neighbor. He's a good man, and he and Connie, and we love him, and we're glad to be a part of it.
Let me ask you a little bit about your family now. When did you meet Judy, and when did you get married?
I met Judy, and it's my second marriage, and I got married in 75. Don't tell her I don't remember for sure, but I think it's 75. And she tells me it's 45 years. And she had 2 children, and I had 2 children. She had a boy and a girl, and I have two girls. Her daughter is the oldest of her 2. They live over in New Braunfels, close by, and the son lives in Austin. And my 2 daughters with their children live in Oklahoma City. So we keep in touch, and we're all good family, and so it's a good thing.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And so, what are you doing these days to fill your time?
Trying to stay out of trouble with my wife.
I can't do that, dog.
No, I've still got horses, and I don't ride as much as I used to. I used to do cutting horse competition. It was just a lot of fun. I've never taken drugs in my life, but I can imagine, because riding a cutting horse is addictive, and I would think that might be something like drug people. I don't know. I'd like to say I don't know, but riding a cutting horse, and I've ridden horses all my life.
Yeah.
I mean, when I was a little bitty guy, I was riding horses, and when I started riding cutting horses, and if anybody is listening that knows about them, you know that you learn to ride altogether differently than you've ridden before on a regular stock saddle. So it's a lot of fun.
So let's see, who's the most influential person of your life, whether in young life, whether it's later on?
I don't know. There are lots. I guess there are several. My dad, who died when I was 8. I remember very well what a good Christian he was, and that's a good thing for me. I'm happy and proud of that. And then my uncle that ran, he and his wife, and my uncle was a Christian, and so it's been a good thing having Christians around, and I'm not proud of the fact that during my wild years that I strayed and didn't do anything real terribly bad, but I did things that I'm not proud of, and I'm so glad that God forgives.
Yeah, aren't we? I mean, we are just so blessed to have a God that loves us so much that He looks past all of our junk, because we all have a lot of junk.
Yeah, and trying to really realize that He forgives, and
Yeah, he doesn't keep score. The Bible tells us specifically that he does not keep track of those. And you know what the beautiful thing is we're going to see these people again.
Absolutely.
And that's a promise, that
Yes, it sure is.
I had John on the show last week, our first show, and that guy's explosive. You know John very well, and but yeah, he was key. And I had a hard time when Dad passed. I mean, I just couldn't get over it. And the first year, almost a whole year that Dad was gone, Mom would call almost daily. And hey, can you come look at this? And can you come fix this? And and I didn't even think about it. Like, yeah, I'll be over after work, And so I would go from here to, leave at 3:30 in the morning, get to work, do my job, and then I would go to Mom's and work there till who knows what time, and then come home. And by the end of the year, I was pretty exhausted, and that's when I realized that I hadn't really surrendered my life. And it was through that process because I heard John speak at church one Wednesday, and then he was gone again. I guess he went back to Madagascar to finish up what he was doing over there. And I had talked to JK, and I wanted to talk to John. And so when John came back, we met up, and he's like, "You either believe the word of God or you don't. And if you don't, it's because you haven't surrendered your life completely. Because if you had surrendered your life, you would know,
that
without a doubt that the Bible is 100% true.
Absolutely.
And you wouldn't be worried about whether you're going to see your dad again or not."
Right.
And it just, the light bulb came on. I was like, wow, I don't like you. I love you, but I don't like you right now.
And he told you the truth.
Yeah. Because I was, I just, it was like what do they say, deafening silence. It was just one of those moments where I realized I wasn't where I thought I was.
Yeah.
And a lot of us grow up, I don't know about how you grew up, but I grew up very Catholic, and I love my Catholic, family, and incredible foundation that I built on. I got nothing bad to say about them. But I grew up in church. I didn't grow up in Christ, and there's a difference, right? And so, but it's ironic because my mother, who is devoutly Catholic, but when I look at her life today, that woman's got a relationship. She wakes up every morning and she's in the Word, and she stays in the Word, and then before she goes to bed, she's in the Word.
Good.
And so she's spending all that time, and that's a relationship. When you spend time with somebody, that's a relationship.
Right. And
so Mom does that, and so does my sister. But they know it as their religion, and I'm good. I mean, I know where my mom and sister are at, and I know where they're going to be.
Yeah.
And so I don't worry about that too much. But I didn't grow up that way, and so I had no clue, and I ran amok, Don. When I got divorced, I was into drugs and alcohol. I did it all. Not all of it, but I did a lot of it. And so I was probably drinking a half a gallon every 2 days, 3 days.
My goodness.
And I was doing a lot of methamphetamine and marijuana, just whatever I get my hands on. And I look back now where I'm at, being completely redeemed and being saved and knowing where I'm going. And I look back now and I look back at that JR, and I wish I could go back and tell him, dude, there is hope. Because that's what I was doing. I was hopeless. I was trying to find hope at the bottom of a bottle, or at the end of some drugs, and it just never filled the.
Well, and you're thinking about, and I remember when I was not doing things that I should do for the Lord. You wish that you could go back and change those years and recoup and show people a better way, and I do that too. And I'm certainly not proud of myself. I'm not even proud of myself now. I just know that I'm a sinner waiting for the Lord to help me. I need it all the time.
That's right. I'm the same way, and I'm just so thankful that we have a God that loves us so much that He lets all the trash that we bring to Him go. And it was let me tell you, it was a bad day when I realized that everything that I had done in my life is what put Him on that cross.
Yeah.
It was a bad day for me. It was a beautiful day.
Yeah.
A perfect day. But by the same token, I wept.
Yeah.
the day that I surrendered my life, I wept because I knew that my sin and that everything I had done in my life put my Savior on that cross.
Absolutely.
And that was a rough day, but it's a good day.
But you're not by yourself.
That's right.
We all that way.
And that's one thing. My favorite verse is Joshua 1:9, and it's be strong and of good courage. Do not be afraid, neither be thou dismayed, for the Lord thy God is with you wherever thou goes. And that just means that no matter if your family abandons you, if your friends abandon you, if everybody in your world turns their back to you, you are still not alone. God is there. And that's my favorite. My other favorite one is John 15:13, which is, greater love hath no man than he would give up his life for a friend.
And those are favorites too, and I've got a lot of them, but it's an unusual one. Of the verses that I like very much is Isaiah 6:8, and it talks about if the Lord is looking for someone to go, and it says, "Send me, Lord."
Ooh, that's a good one.
I love it.
I'm there now, right? We all are, because I'm just so thankful. I mean, everything that the whole coffee business, came up from men getting together, talking about God, and drinking coffee. And so Robert O'Connor is the one who said, this is a business and a mission waiting to happen. And I said, man, I was talking about, I don't know nothing about coffee. I know how I like coffee. And so, but we prayed about it, and God has just truly blessed us with people that know the coffee industry.
Well, it's interesting that I don't know anything about coffee, but you taught me a lot about coffee in the last little while, and it's interesting. There's a lot to it.
Yeah, and I'll have the one Don is enjoying today is our Strong and Courageous, which is it's a blend of Rwandan and Ethiopian beans. That's Connie's favorite coffee, and she wants me to do it without mesquite. So it's going to be the next.
Okay.
That may just be for her private reserve. I don't know.
Private reserve.
and then I'm drinking I'm almost done with it, but I'm drinking the Revelation 16:8, which is a high caffeine light roast.
Okay.
And it's a blend also. It's not 100%. Most of the beans that we buy from Legacy Farms Coffee. They're out of Honduras. The owner, Ashley Williams, and his wife, Julia, and their two boys, they live up in Mountain Ridge, Kansas, and they're doing incredible missionary work. And all their beans are they're just incredible. This year we were able to buy some beans from some of their workers.
Good.
Who they've been helping and supporting. And their goal this year is to build a church and be able to have enough money to staff it full time with a pastor on their farm. And so, we really try to, support the people. And, I don't care if it's the cheapest coffee. That I don't want the cheapest coffee I can find, because I know that if you do that, then you're more than likely got a big company that's going down taking advantage of people. Yeah. And so we definitely don't approve of that, and we don't want to
quality.
Yeah, it really is about quality. And so if you're looking for the $4 HEB coffee, well, there's $4 coffee at HEB, but our coffee is specialty coffee, is classified specialty coffee. And we just sent some of our coffee with Ashley. He's gonna take it down with him to Honduras in January. Good. And he's going to have it cupped, and he's going to have it tested for caffeine content, and so we might be able to say that we're more caffeinated than some of the other brands out there.
That's okay, yeah.
It's but that's something that's in the future. So Don, give me one piece of advice that you would give to other veterans. You went to Vietnam. My uncle went to Vietnam. My uncle suffered for years and years, and just recently I say recently, it's been a few years now, but he found a group of other Vietnam veterans that were in the same place he was. He was up north, not in the country, off to the side over there. And so I've tried for years to talk to him, to get him to just tell me something, and he gets really mad, and he's like, I'm not going to talk to you about this ever. And then he even told me one time, he says, most things that happened over there are not for general consumption of the public.
Yeah, they don't understand.
And so, and I get that, you get that. I understand when you tell me that, I know, don't ask. And I get it because I understand. I know what my dad suffered for years because he had to kill somebody. He shot somebody when he was on duty in Turkey. And he knew the guy. And the guy violated all the protocols. And so, the sentry said, man, you can't let him go. And we don't know if it's him.
Yeah.
And so, but I know that plagued him his whole life. What advice would you give to other veterans that might be suffering from whatever?
It's interesting that you bring that up, and I won't talk about it much, and I might get upset. But anyway, when I came back from Vietnam, and even after I got out of service, I wouldn't talk about it at all. I mean, nothing. You'd barely mention it to other veterans that you could talk to, and they understood. And it was several years after I got out of the Army that some of my pilot buddies got a hold of me, of all things, through my Social Security number, and found out where I was, and they called me. What a surprise and a shock. It had been 15 or 20 years. And so at that time, and like I say, until then, I would never talk about it. So we got together and we talked quite a bit and let some of that anxiety go. And I don't tell people anything much. My wife tries to get me to talk about it, and I just can't and won't. And it's a deep hurt, and I don't know how to explain that. I guess that all veterans probably have that thing.
Do you reach out to those buddies still that you flew with?
I talk to some of those, yes, pretty regularly.
And so that's a way that you deal with it.
It's kind of a way to let it out. It is. Because you do things and had to do things and that you're not proud of, but
that's the life of the military.
Our job, and I'll explain that right quick. And I flew the Cobra, and our mission was reconnaissance. We flew 2 Cobras, the red birds we call them, and a white bird was a little reconnaissance helicopter down near top treetops, and they'd fly around and report back to us what they had found. And if and when they took fire from an enemy or whatever, we'd get them out of the area and shoot up the area and take care of business. And so that was what we called it, a pink team, white and red. And that was a reconnaissance team in Vietnam, and that's what we did. That was our true mission. We had a lot of shooting missions and all that, but I don't know how many thousands of rockets I shot and how many things that I did, good, bad, or indifferent. But God was good to me. I took a lot of rounds, but I never did get shot down, so I'm happy with that. But we can talk. The guys that I flew with in Vietnam, we can talk about it openly, and sometimes I get down in the dumps and I'll get all puffy and all that, and I don't intend to, but sometimes it gets heavy on your mind. It really does.
I think that's really important to Doc Jocelyn. He's a Army combat medic, did 20 years in the service, and he's got a podcast, and he's got he sent me a paper that he wrote and some other things. And I listened to his podcast one day, and one of the things that really stuck out to me, everybody does and I got nothing against, I try to do the 22 push-up thing, and I'm so fat that 4 days after doing it, I hurt my back. And so I couldn't do it anymore. But I listened to one of his podcasts, and he's like, this is, he doesn't fault anybody for it. It's great. Thank you for doing it. But what are you doing on day 23? What are you doing on day 24? And so, if you're out there, you're a veteran and you're struggling with stuff, Don, Vietnam, he still talks to his Vietnam buddies. Why? Because he can relate to them. And so somebody's always willing to listen. And although I don't have those experiences, if you just want to talk about nothing, I'll talk to you about nothing. But somebody is always willing to talk to you. Someone is always willing to listen. And sometimes maybe that's what people need. They need someone to listen to them.
Yeah, that's true.
You know,
True.
and so I can't stress. You can talk to me about this all day. This I'll talk to you about all day. But I can't stress how much God can take away all that pain and suffering.
That's really true.
And I know when for a while when I got out, my knees were messed up, and the VA they had me on hydrocodone, 3-4 times a day, and they would send me 90 days of supply at a time, and it doesn't really do you any good, and they don't try to, at that time they weren't trying to fix the problem, and so I know how easy it is. Nowadays they give them out, they give you, if you got anxiety or something like that, they'll give you a pill for that, and then it could cascade into something bigger, but ultimately, God can take away a lot of the problems that cause the suffering in the first place.
He really can. I ask for that help all the time.
Yeah. And it's amazing. I mean, we have a God who spoke the world into existence.
Absolutely.
You think he can't handle our little emotional problems?
Yeah. He's probably sitting there laughing at me all the time for being such a wimp.
He probably. He's probably got a book on me somewhere that I'm probably going to have to look at eventually. But I look forward to that day to be in his presence.
I do too.
And we'll all be together again. And so that's something that I definitely look forward to.
Me too.
Well, Don, is there any words of wisdom that you'd like to?
Well, first, I guess I need to explain to some people that are watching this can see I had perfect vision for all those years flying, and I got glaucoma and lost the sight in my left eye. And just 2 days ago, they did a deal called a Gunderson flap on my left eye, and I know it looks ugly and red, and it is ugly and red. And I'm sorry y'all had to watch it, but I just wanted you to know. I just pray that everyone listening, especially if you don't know the Lord, if you'd step up and ask for his help. Our country is in so much distress. It has nothing to do with one type of a Republican or Democrat. It's just in a terrible stress, and we need God's help so bad. And we need to get on our knees often and pray for help.
So true. Absolutely. I've said this before. I know you've all heard me say this before. I've had so many people tell me that I can't put God in front of my business. But the real truth is that if I don't put God way out in front of my business,
you don't have a business.
I don't have a business. I don't have anything. And I believe that with all my heart. And last week, John talked about this thing where people who say that they don't believe in God, and he drew a circle. And he said this circle represents all knowledge, past, present, and future. Everything that could ever be learned in all of eternity is that circle. And so you take some of the smartest people and tell them, I want you to draw a circle inside the circle of your knowledge. And he goes, and even some of the smartest people he knows will just do a little speck because they know that there's a ton of stuff they don't know. So if you look at that representation and then he asks a question, so is it possible then in all of this knowledge, and your knowledge is right here and all this other knowledge, is it possible that there's a God out there that you just don't know about? And there is, because I know him. I have a relationship with him. I have a relationship with a living God. And I can, we can talk about stuff. I can tell you about things that have happened in our life. My wife tried to kill herself during Christmas one year. And when I got to the hospital, the doctor asked me point blank, do you believe in God? And I thought she had passed away. And I said, of course I do. And he said, well, that's good, because I don't have any earthly reason why your wife is still alive. And so he showed me the science of why she should be dead. And then
it was out of his hands too.
It was. And when I left, I noticed that underneath his smock on his collar, he had a little cross. And so I knew that he knew that, she was alive because God had a purpose for her. And so that's a tough thing, and let me tell you, it was a long time before Connie was able to talk about that, and she posted it publicly on Facebook one year.
Mhm.
And so that's if you don't know God, I promise you that He's real, and I promise you that He can do things that man and that medication can't do.
It's true. Very true. I don't know if you can see this little bitty cross that I'm holding. It's made out of horseshoe nails. Can you see it, JR, you think?
Here, let me put it up here, Bob.
It's made out of horseshoe nails. And I've given, I don't know how many thousand of those away. I've given those to clerks in a store that's having a bad day at a cashier stand, or just people that I'm meeting. You can tell that they're having a bad day. And I've given them one of these crosses and just tell them that God wants you, He loves you and wants you to have it. And I've had people cry like a baby.
Yeah, that's a blessing too. Part of our package that we send coffee with people, there's 2 pennies with a cross punched out.
Good.
And it says we put a little paper tag, and it says one to bless you and one to bless another.
There you go. Good.
And so they'll have to cut that straight, put one in their pocket, and give the other one to someone else.
That's good.
And you just never know what's going to start a conversation.
You never know. And all you're doing is just opening the door.
That's right.
Presenting it to them.
And we have to be diligent about sharing that with people, because right now, like you say, we're in a bad way in this country.
We are in a bad way.
And it has nothing to do with politics or anything like that, but has to do with the fact that not enough people are trusting God. Not enough people know the Lord.
That's absolutely true. And there's that old saying, you got to dance with who brung you. And the Holy Ghost, the Bible was in the first time they made a constitution, signed the Constitution, and it's all made on biblical terms. And we can't turn that away. We can't let that go. This country is built on religion, on the gods, believing in the Lord. And if we lose that, we're gone.
Yeah, I definitely agree. It's a struggle, and I think we're at a pinnacle right now.
I do too.
And so it may be a turning point.
We can only pray.
I just pray that it's a turning point where people, turn back to the Lord, or if you don't know Him, turn to Him.
Absolutely.
Well, Don, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you coming over. I know it's not a long drive, but
oh gosh, it took me 6 minutes.
but I really do appreciate. I thank you for your service. Welcome home.
Thank you. And I'm glad to be here. Thank you. I enjoyed it.
I've enjoyed your mentorship over the years that I've known you. I've enjoyed your leadership in the many capacities that you've served the church and community, and you still serve our community. Don still keeps us in line down here. He makes us do. I don't know what y'all call it in the Army, but in the Navy it's quarters in the morning where you got to muster at 7.
That's right.
So, but I do thank you, and I really thank you for your spiritual guidance. Well, you're a great example of how we should treat one another.
Well, that's nice of you to say, but I think any Christian who's honest doesn't feel like he's can be a good leader for that, and you just try your best.
That's right. You're absolutely right.
But thank you for your words. I appreciate it.
Well, Don, I sure appreciate it. I appreciate your service to our country, and you still serve our country. I think those of us who have served know that there's no expiration date on that enlistment. There's no expiration date on that.
Never.
On that oath that we took, when we swore in before any of us ever went to boot camp.
That's right.
And so, again, I thank you for your time, and we'll have you back on the show soon.
Oh, boy. Thank you very much.
Love you, brother.
Love you, too.
All right. Well, if you're still with me, I hope you can hear me still fine. That was just a great interview with Don. He's an incredible individual, and he's very modest, but he really is a leader. Men follow him, not because he was a pilot, or not because he was a colonel, lieutenant colonel, or not because of anything other than he's a good Christian. He's a good Christian man, and he has a lot of wisdom to bestow. And so, um, I really appreciate all the support that we're getting. We're doing 20% off until December 31st with the coffee. Use code capital C as in Charlie, capital L as in Lima, 20. I'll put the code in the comments. And if you use that code, you'll get 20% off of anything in the store. We're roasting tonight. We're roasting just about every other day almost here, seems like. And so get your orders in, and uh, pray for our country. Pray for those people that are in need. Pray for the people who are sick with COVID. Pray for the people who are sick with cancer and sick with the flu and sick with, um, you know, everything else. We really need to get away from this. Everything is COVID, because it's really not. God's got so much more. And although I respect this virus, and I wear my mask when I'm supposed to, and I don't complain about it, and uh, God's got my number, and He knows exactly the second of the hour that I'm going to die. And if it's going to be by a virus, I could live in a plastic bubble and I would still get the virus. So um, trust in God, obey the civil authorities, but trust in God. Because disobedience to the civil authorities is disobedience to God. And Vodi Bachman said that. He's a pastor from Houston, and he backs it up with scripture. And so, um, love each other the way God intended us to love one another. Uh, Thanks for tuning in. Look for us next Friday at 1900, when we will have Ashley Williams, who is responsible for all of that over there. And he's going to talk to us about coffee. And in case you hadn't figured out the pattern here, we did a pastor the first week, we did a Cobra pilot the second week, and we're going to do the owner of a coffee farm in Honduras next week. And so I love you guys. Thank you for all the support. Thank you for all the orders. We're getting subscriptions now. We're getting orders. We're getting all kinds of stuff coming. It's all a blessing, and I give it all to God. And so until next week, pray for one another. Pray for our country. Pray for our leaders. Pray for your local communities and your neighborhoods. Pray for your neighbors and your family. And love you guys. See you next week on God Country Coffee. God bless.